I did one time work with a person. So we're shooting, and this person suddenly got annoyed at, people talking while we were shooting.
Hollywood may look glamorous on the outside, but behind the red carpets and flashing cameras, some of the biggest stars hold grudges that never fade. Julia Roberts, known as America's sweetheart, has always kept her private life guarded. Until now. At 57, she's finally breaking her silence and revealing the 7 actors she absolutely hated working with the most. So who dared cross the pretty woman star? What sparked her scathing list? Let's dive in. Number 7. Joy Behar. The last name Julia Roberts ever expected to confess with such venom was Joy Behar, and when she did, it felt like thunder. Her words were steady, almost cold. I don't hate her because she's a woman. I hate her because she's a man in disguise, wrapped in full grace. They sounded less like a confession and more like a wound finally cut open. The story stretched back to a bright New York morning, live on The View, 11 a.m., sharp, on ABC. Roberts had come ready to speak about life, motherhood, grief, and the cost of fame. She wanted honesty, maybe even compassion. Instead, what she received was a blade hidden behind a smile. Joy Behar leaned forward, her tone playful on the surface but sharp underneath. Do you think your success comes more from your legs and your mouth than from your talent? The words landed like an ambush. Julia's face stiffened, her eyes narrowing against the sting. Through clenched teeth, she whispered, "You're turning me into a joke, a smiling piece of meat." Moments later, she slipped off her microphone and walked off stage, leaving the studio frozen in stunned silence. But that wasn't the only time sparks flew between the two women. On another appearance, the temperature rose again, this time over Julia's environmental activism. Behar accused her of hypocrisy, mocking her for flying private jets and owning multiple homes while speaking against climate change. The audience sat in uneasy silence as the exchange escalated. Julia tried to defend herself, speaking of carbon offsets, renewable projects, even millions she had poured into lobbying and awareness. But Behar pressed harder, dismissing her as another out-of-touch celebrity. The tension cracked open when Julia finally snapped. "At least when I pretend I'm creating something. When you pretend to be a journalist, you're just destroying." She rose to her feet, her voice breaking through the heavy air, and asked the other hosts how they could sit there and enable such cruelty. As she left, the audience split, some stunned, some cheering, but everyone aware they had witnessed something raw, a fracture that would never heal. But if Julia's fury felt like a storm, what shadow did Meryl Streep cast? Was she rival, betrayer, or something darker still? Stay right here. Number 6. Meryl Streep. It began in 1991 with a script that promised to change everything for Julia Roberts. This was no light-hearted romantic comedy or glossy Hollywood spectacle. It was a dark, intimate drama based on the true story of a woman's survival. Silent, repressed, yet deeply human. Julia didn't just agree to star in it, she threw herself into shaping it, body and soul. For 7 relentless months, she studied, rewrote, and prepared. She believed this role would finally secure her the Oscar she had long been chasing. In her own words, "This wasn't just a role. It was mine. I bled for it." But then came the betrayal. A leaked script found its way into the offices of CAA, the very agency representing not only Julia, but also Meryl Streep. 2 months later, the project reappeared under a new name, The Last Silence. The writer was different, the title changed, and the lead role no longer belonged to Julia Roberts. It now belonged to Meryl Streep. There was no credit, no acknowledgement, not even the courtesy of an apology. Julia had been erased from her own creation. The loss sent her spiraling. For nearly a year, she stepped back from Hollywood, haunted by insomnia and panic attacks. Simply hearing Meryl's name on television was enough to trigger waves of anxiety. To a close friend, she admitted the wound in words sharp with pain. "I don't hate her because she's talented. I hate her because she knew I bled to build that, and she stepped over it without ever looking back." From then on, Julia demanded protection. Contracts would have to spell out every detail. Scene breakdowns, creative input, even camera placement. Yet fate intervened again in 2013, when the two women were cast together in August, Osage County. The tension was immediate. Julia reportedly pushed to change the film's ending, removing a final lingering shot of Meryl in favor of herself. Streep, furious, skipped the Toronto premiere altogether. Publicly, Julia called Meryl a beautiful person and the best there is. But behind the smiles lay unease. Julia confessed that during brutal fight scenes she felt like a terrible person shoving Meryl to the ground, even half joking that she might go to hell for it. Meryl never complained, silently nursing a swollen wrist, more concerned for Julia's comfort than her own. Today, their feud is not loud, not public, but cold. It lives in distance, in silence, in words. Julia once admitted with quiet finality, "Working with her was a privilege, but it wasn't the dream I thought it would be." And when the name George Clooney enters Julia's story, is it loyalty or betrayal that defines their bond? Keep watching. Number 5. George Clooney. The fifth name Julia Roberts spoke carried the weight of betrayal. George Clooney. She admitted there was only one moment in her life when she truly thought about walking away from Hollywood, leaving the fame, the cameras, and the endless expectations behind. That moment was when she fell for George. It was 2001, on the set of Ocean's 11. Their bond grew quietly, away from the glare of the spotlight. Long night shoots blurred into shared laughter. Clooney would bring her coffee by hand, scribble her notes, and send simple late-night texts. "Thinking about you." For Julia, it felt real. So real she considered stepping away from the sequel and following him to Italy, trading red carpets for a quieter life. But what followed was a heartbreak that left her stunned. In an exclusive Vanity Fair interview, George Clooney casually remarked, "Julia is amazing. She acts well and kisses even better. That kiss, I think it alone will bring audiences back to the theater." What the world didn't know was that the kiss he spoke of wasn't just acting. For Julia, it had been the first time she gave her whole heart on a film set. For George, it became currency. The final blow came when Julia learned the truth. Clooney had shared a private bedroom photo of the two of them with a producer. In return, he secured the director's chair for his debut film, a deal valued at $2 million and a coveted power seat at Warner Brothers. The revelation crushed her. In her words, "He didn't sell me to the press, he sold me for a directing deal." Julia didn't lash out. Instead, she sent him a single fax, stark and devastating in its simplicity. "Thank you for making me famous by killing me." From that moment, the curtain fell. They were never seen together again, not on screen, not in photographs, not even offering each other a polite congratulations. No hug, no handshake, just silence. Just as the silence grew unbearable, another name stepped from the shadows: Sean Penn. But what truth does he conceal? Stay glued. Number 4. Sean Penn. The next name Julia Roberts revealed was Sean Penn, and her words cut with the sharpness of memory. "I'm not afraid of a nip slip on screen. I'm afraid of the director laughing behind the monitor." It was 2005 when Julia agreed to star in an independent psychological drama under Penn's direction. At the time, he was hailed as Hollywood's mad genius, a filmmaker who blurred the line between art and chaos. Julia, cautious but intrigued, agreed to take the role on one condition: there would be no nudity, no explicit sexual content. That promise was written into her contract. She believed her boundaries were respected. But what happened in post-production left her shaken. An internal leak revealed a scene where Julia appeared fully nude, filmed from behind while she was changing costumes. It was never part of the script, never agreed upon, never intended to exist. She immediately demanded its removal, furious that her privacy had been violated. Penn's response was chilling. He brushed off her protest with the words, "Audiences crave truth, and your body is an irresistible truth." Julia broke down in tears, yet her tears changed nothing. When the film premiered, the American release cut the footage, but the international version kept the explicit scene intact. A moment she never consented to was now immortalized on screen. Julia never addressed it publicly. There were no lawsuits, no fiery interviews, no open condemnation. She chose silence in the face of humiliation, a silence that many mistook for acceptance. But silence is not forgiveness. Years later, in 2022, during a private conversation with close friends, Julia allowed herself a rare admission. Her voice trembled, but her words were clear. "If anyone asks who I hate most in life, I won't hesitate to name the first man who put my body on screen without my consent." The wound was not theatrical. It was not gossip. It was the kind of violation that lingers long after the lights of Hollywood dim. So now, what secret did Bradley Cooper leave, etched behind Julia's smile? And why does it still haunt her? Stay tuned. Number 3. Bradley Cooper. The next name was Bradley Cooper, and Julia Roberts delivered it with a sting. "He didn't just seduce me into bed. He seduced me into headlines, into scenes, and onto the pedestal of humiliation." It was 2010 during casting for The Art of Falling, a dark, romantic drama that Julia was producing herself. Bradley, fresh off the explosive success of The Hangover, was Hollywood's newest obsession. Charming, magnetic, impossible to ignore. Julia, usually guarded, found herself lowering her defenses. Their flirtation began during auditions, playful and intoxicating. Within weeks, she gave him the lead role, even passing over 3 seasoned actors who had fought hard for the part. Friends and colleagues warned her, but she trusted her instincts. That trust became her downfall. As filming unfolded, Bradley began to exploit their connection. He leaked rumors of their romance to the tabloids, fed private photos to gossip sites, and pushed the director to rewrite the ending so his character could dominate the spotlight. The final betrayal came when Julia discovered he had secretly recorded one of their private conversations, justified under the guise of character research. When she confronted him in fury, Bradley's response was chilling. "This is how I stay real in a role. Don't you want the film to be great?" For Julia, the answer was final. She cut him from the sequel, severed every tie, and has never uttered his name on television since. "Some men broke my heart," she once reflected. "But Bradley Cooper made me disgusted with my own judgment." So what secret betrayal could possibly haunt Nicole Kidman more than Julia's ordeal? And why has it remained hidden? Stay connected. Number 2. Nicole Kidman. To Julia Roberts, the soul of movie making has never been in the red carpets or the glossy magazine covers. It lives in the quiet moments behind the cameras, the long mornings when exhaustion shows on the crew's faces, the small kindnesses exchanged between takes, the way people treat each other when no spotlight is shining. For her, that's the dividing line. Those who respect the craft and those who only perform for it. So when Secret in Their Eyes paired Roberts with Nicole Kidman in 2015, it was more than just 2 stars sharing top billing. It was a collision of values. Roberts, famously warm with everyone from assistants to producers, noticed what others whispered. Kidman's elegance often came across as distant, even cold. Crew members claimed she issued instructions without eye contact, brushed past assistants without acknowledgement, and rarely learned names. Julia hates the way Nicole treats the crew, one insider told the National Enquirer. Roberts herself once confided to a friend, "You can always tell who a person really is by how they treat someone who can't do anything for them." But the tension had roots stretching back further. In the late 1990s, Kidman had quietly set her sights on the role of Anna Scott in Notting Hill, a role that transformed Roberts into an even greater global star. Kidman admitted years later that she never stood a chance, lacking both fame and recognition at the time. Roberts, ironically, nearly passed on the script, calling it boring and tedious, before famously leaving screenwriter Richard Curtis a voicemail, "I'm going to do this movie." Nicole never got close. By the time they reunited on set, the air was already heavy with unspoken history. Roberts praised Kidman publicly, calling her perfect, talented, and stunning. Yet her words sounded almost too polished, as if covering something unsaid. Kidman, meanwhile, stayed silent. No follow-up collaborations, no red carpet embraces, no shared moments beyond that single film. Two icons, circling the same Hollywood sky, but never colliding again. And in Roberts's carefully measured smile, one can still sense the trace of something unspoken, something colder than the script allowed. Finally, so what secret bound Juliana Margulies to Julia Roberts in ways Hollywood never dared expose? Number 1 awaits. Stay tuned. Number 1. Juliana Margulies. In Hollywood, where dazzling smiles on the red carpet often disguise grudges that run far deeper, the story of Julia Roberts and Juliana Margulies feels less like a passing slight and more like a quiet feud that never truly healed. Its beginnings were far from glamorous. Long before Margulies became a household name, she was working shifts in a Manhattan restaurant that catered to the elite. Among the regulars was Julia Roberts, already a global star, commanding attention wherever she went. Years later, in a 2010 interview with David Letterman, Margulies recalled those nights with an edge in her voice. "She's lovely when you're not waiting on her," she said, describing Roberts as dismissive toward staff. It was a small remark, but one heavy with memory. The story resurfaced again in 2006, when fate placed both women in Broadway theaters directly across the street from each other. Over dinner one evening, Margulies confronted Roberts about their first encounter. Roberts, without flinching, admitted, "Oh God, was I horrible?" and confessed she had been young and overwhelmed, just 23, surrounded by handlers and admirers. In an effort to make amends, she picked up the check. That apology might have been the end, yet those close to both women suggest the air never cleared. Margulies kept the matter light in public, but her tone hinted at lingering disdain. Roberts, meanwhile, chose silence, never speaking of the encounter beyond that dinner, and silence in Hollywood often carries more weight than words. Both actresses, after all, have reputations for intensity. Roberts has been described by colleagues as magnetic yet difficult, fiercely in control of her craft. Margulies, too, has her own history of conflicts. Her fractured relationship with the Good Wife co-star Archie Panjabi became so infamous that body doubles and digital tricks were reportedly used to avoid filming scenes together. So, was the tension between Roberts and Margulies merely two strong personalities clashing? Or did that restaurant incident leave a scar that never faded? What lingers is Margulies' carefully chosen line, "She's lovely when you're not waiting on her," a compliment that cuts like velvet-wrapped steel. To this day, there has been no reconciliation, no warm reunion, no joint appearance, just distance. And in Hollywood, distance can speak louder than any public feud. So what do you think? Does Julia's silence hide wounds deeper than the spotlight ever revealed? Or is it proof some grudges never fade? We'd like to hear your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.